But, hey, you know what, man? As this kind of off-season, the 53-man rosters are becoming final. I know, Broder, you said that something came to mind as it relates to Jameson Williams, who we're expecting a big season out of. Wide receiver 2, it's big expectations. He has big expectations. But there was one team in particular that came to mind, and it was one Minnesota Vikings who aren't having, in my opinion, the best of off-seasons or preseasons right now, man. Who won that 2022 Jameson Williams draft day trade between the Vikings and the Lions? Well, we got to talk about it, right?
Yeah, yes, we do. And let me just say this: you can't definitively yet say that the Lions made great picks with Jameson Williams and Josh Paschal. I think JMO is going to have a breakout season. I think Josh Paschal is going to have a breakout season to some degree, but when it really was put right in front of me, the 2022 draft, the picks that the Vikings got and the picks that they made, it looks like I'm starting to believe that the Vikings GM, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, just can't draft worth a damn, because their number 32 overall pick was Lewis Cine, a guy who unfortunately started out his career hurt, but hasn't done anything in the NFL, and he just got released. The number 42 overall pick was cornerback Andrew Booth, who has done nothing for the Vikings whatsoever and got traded. Their 59th pick is Ed Ingram, who's a starting guard, but a below average one. And their 66th overall pick from the 2022 draft was Brian Asamoah, who has done absolutely nothing for the Vikings and was beat out by UFA in 2023. When I saw that, when I was really reminded of it, I'm starting to believe that a lot of the people who are dismissing the Vikings as a team that is going to be last in the NFC North and maybe gets like 5 to 7 wins, I get what they're saying. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, he was fortunate to inherit Justin Jefferson and Christian Darrisaw and like Harrison Smith, for example, and he's made some moves that I like in this offseason, but the way that he's drafted, particularly in this 2022 draft where they had all of these picks. They had 4 picks from 32 to 66, and that's what you got? Lewis Cine, Andrew Booth, Ed Ingram, and Brian Asamoah? That's shameful.
Wait, Lewis who?
Cine.
Where is he?
He got hurt, and he got hurt in his rookie year, but he's off the team. He's done.
Man.
He's done.
He's on the Jets practice squad now.
He's on the Jets. He's on the Jets practice squad.
There was hype around him when he got drafted, too. So
There was, and it's just, I'm starting to think that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah just has no idea what he's doing. And Broder, because I want to throw it to you, you had questions about the draft that they just had. You were the one who next day said, I think the Vikings had a crappy draft. Going off of his history, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, maybe he just doesn't know what he's doing.
I don't think he does. Like, what are we talking about here, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah? Like, he's hit on like 2.5 out of 16 draft picks since he's been in Minnesota. He mortgaged the farm basically to move up one spot to get J.J. McCarthy, Dallas Turner. I don't know what he's doing. This trade, I would argue the Packers won that trade. Between the Lions and the Vikings, the Lions won the trade, then the Packers came next because the Packers got Christian Watson out of pick number 34. But he hasn't done anything. If not for Kevin O'Connell, if not for inheriting Justin Jefferson, this Vikings team might be a joke. Yeah. Might be a joke. And when you compare it to Brad Holmes, when you compare it to what Brad Holmes has done, we're talking last year, Lewis Cine, their first-round pick, not even on the team anymore. Yeah. Andrew Booth, the second pick in that, already traded for a third-round pick, Nashawn Wright, who was already waived by the Vikings and brought back to their practice squad. Brad Holmes, of the 20 starters the Lions have now, of the 20 starters on the Lions roster right now, 11 were drafted by Brad Holmes. 30 players on the 53-man roster are still in the first 4 years of their career, and 50 of the 53 players on the active roster were acquired by Brad Holmes. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah? Come on, man.
Yeah, and
that's crazy.
Well, yeah, and this is where I don't even know if I want to say here. Let me just, because I'm gonna give a little bit of grace, but I'm also going to highlight the situation that he walked into. It just depends on the picks that he missed. With the Lewis Cine one, he is very, very lucky that he inherited Cameron Bynum and Josh Metellus, two safeties who were lower round picks by the previous regime and have turned out to be good players. He's lucky. He made a couple of moves in the offseason, like getting Shaquille Griffin and getting Stephon Gilmore to offset Andrew Booth being absolutely nothing and Mekhi Blackmon being hurt. But you'd rather, in a perfect world, if you're Adolfo Mensa, have your cornerback that you drafted work out instead of having to pay a couple. I mean, in Ed Ingram, there's a reason why we talk about the Vikings tackles and not their guards. Ed Ingram stinks. And I'm not even trying to be a dick. Some offensive linemen just aren't good, and Ed Ingram is one of them. And Brian Asamoah, again, he's a nothing of a player. Ivan Pace beat him out. They went and paid Brian Cashman, which were good moves, but they're good moves that were a necessity because of the Brian Asamoah pick being an absolute disaster. And all of these 4 picks being an absolute disaster. And as you said, the Packers got more out of their 1 player, Christian Watson, than the Vikings did from their 4. And it's not close. It's not close.
Sheesh.
It's not close at all.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
I say, what does Jameson Williams not have to do for this to not be like an absolute grand slam home run? It's already a win, right?
It's
technically, yeah.
Yeah,
technically.
I want to be very clear. I think that when we look back at this trade, even though I've been called like the biggest JMO hater, and I don't blame you for that, it's going to be looked at as a massive win for the Detroit Lions, no doubt about it. Because JMO's about to have a breakout season, and for the record, I've been critical of Jameson Williams. I've been more critical of his fans, but we did see him have a great game in the NFC Championship. We did see him make big splash plays down the stretch. More important splash plays than we ever saw from any of these Vikings guys, without a shadow of a doubt.
But I don't blame you, though. I don't blame you one bit for saying, you know what, I need to see something first. Because when Jameson Williams was taken, this was before we knew at all what this organization or this regime was going to be. And all we had seen prior is, you know what, seemingly, hey, this is a good hire. These are the right people. They're going to bring the Lions back to fruition. We saw this for a couple different regimes, and all of it fell on its face. As you said earlier, egg on the face, the Lions organization was absolutely jumping into a swimming pool full of it. Now all of a sudden we see Brad Holmes absolutely cooking, and as fans, now all of a sudden we're gonna take a step back and listen to exactly what he's doing, because he stated, my process for evaluating players is different than even a lot of the other pros out there who are looking at, numbers, who are looking at these things. Listen, we're looking at several different things, and we also take into account who that person is in those interviews. And it's interesting to see and to hear this, because initially I would assume, hey, we want the guys with the measurables. But Brad Holmes has proven that whatever his way is definitely something far greater than not just us, but even these pros out there can't get right. And we know that because of the previous era. I'm not even going to say their name. The previous regime here within the Lions organization. So Brad Holmes cooking is no longer just something we say. It's not something you just brand or market. It's a literal reality. Brad Holmes is literally cooking even the pros, the tops of the game.
Yes, and imagine what Brad Holmes would have been able to do with 4 out of the 32 to 66 picks in a draft. Imagine that. Because in the NFL, in the salary cap era, you have to be good at drafting. Mm-hmm. You saw how quick the Lions were able to turn their entire franchise around because Brad Holmes has drafted so well. You saw how the Kansas City Chiefs, even though they had to trade a Tyreek Hill and they got rid of Tyrann Mathieu, were able to maintain their Super Bowl. They were able to maintain what turned out to be a dynasty, not just because of Patrick Mahomes, not just because of Kelsey and Reed and Chris Jones and Steve Spagnuolo, because they drafted guys like Trent McDuffie. They drafted George Karlaftis. They drafted L'Jarius Sneed. They drafted Nick Bolton. They drafted Rashee Rice. You have to be able to draft well, which Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah has proven so far that he has not been able to do. I mean, look at even his 2023 draft. You see Jordan Addison was a nice pick. Mekhi Blackmon was a nice pick, but there's just their 2022 draft, they had so many picks, and it's not just these ones. Nobody's been good. The best one from that draft is probably a Caleb Evans, and he's a mid-corner.
Crazy.